from Transforma Insights, and I am interviewing Stephan Noller from UBIRCH. Stephan, can you introduce yourself, say a little bit about what you do?
Yes, of course. Thank you. I'm Stephan Noller, CEO and co-founder of UBIRCH. And UBIRCH is a blockchain IoT company, if you like. So we use blockchain technology to secure IoT data, basically.
Good stuff. Stephan, the purpose of these interviews is to talk about environmental issues. And UBIRCH is very interesting because you sit at the intersection of IoT and blockchain. IoT has a pretty good reputation for helping with environmental issues, but blockchain perhaps not so much. Any thoughts on that? Any thoughts on how one might influence the other? Does blockchain have get a bad rap for being less environmentally friendly? What's your perspectives?
Well, my perspective is that IoT, or data from edge devices, how we would say, will play a crucial role in managing environmental risks, the climate crisis, and so on. So it's for sure that these technologies will play a crucial role, and it comes down to the data from these sensors, right? It's not so much that the sensor is there; it's rather that we get some meaningful data for pollution, for energy consumption, and so on. And then the big question is, can we trust those data sources, which are typically not in a secured environment somewhere in the wild, operated by someone else. And that's where blockchain kicks in, and that's why we think blockchain can play a big role. There's even someone, I don't remember the name, who said blockchain might be the killer technology for IoT because it can provide trustworthiness for IoT data sources, right? And that's exactly what UBIRCH is doing. So we are applying some crypto on the edge and make it possible that a sensor data can be made, put to the blockchain, if you like, in a very energy efficient way, by the way. So that's also a technology issue, to solve the energy consumption problem with our own technology. But the way how we do it is extremely not resource intensive, right? And we're using public blockchains nevertheless, So this is just a technology trick, that we are using to make it friendly in terms of energy consumption, but still provide that immutable lock for IoT sensors.
Good stuff. So the idea being, of course, that the uptake of IoT will be encouraged because you have this underlying distributed ledger capability that makes the IoT application feasible, more appealing, more effective, presumably.
Yeah. It comes down to more trustworthy, right? Because the idea is that more machine-to-machine automatic decisions will be taken, or automated trading. Think of submetering of energy production, for example. So if we can prove that a kilowatt hour of energy has been produced by a solar panel and not by burning coal, that can be a big thing, right? To mitigate, risks that come from energy production. And for that, you need some source of trust on the production side, which is can be a solar panel somewhere in the wild. And typically, consumers or even regulators wouldn't trust the operator, of energy production facilities, to say, well, be cool, our energy is produced in a nice way. No, in the future, you will want to have proof for every kilowatt hour. And for these kind of requirements, you need blockchain and crypto technology.
Okay, so there's specifically a trust in energy production certification, almost, that helps with the environmental credentials of blockchain in that specific example. It's an interesting.
Absolutely, and it comes down, to the idea of a smart grid, which will be a crucial piece of technology to manage future energy production. And it is a very interesting, challenge, because you have to find ways to do peer-to-peer trading, so use the power of your neighbor's solar roof, basically, in a way that tax is okay and that the energy producing company behind all that can manage it. But you need some trustworthy technologies between the IoT sensors of devices that use energy and produce energy, basically. So that's a super interesting IoT example. And by the way, also super interesting for cellular uplinks, because most of these facilities will have a mobile connection, basically. Yeah.
So it's verification of the distributed endpoints for production and,
exactly.
and consumption in the what's sometimes termed virtual power plant. I'll throw that in as
exactly. Yeah, that's the right term. Yeah.
VPP as a
yeah.
three-letter acronym. Okay, we've talked through quite a few examples of specific technologies. Any other ones that come to mind in the positive environmental impact?
Yeah, sure. An interesting one is for example, measuring water levels, groundwater levels, for example. So that's also something, that is done with sensors in the wild, typically. And these data points are super interesting. If you think, a Tesla factory is being built, we have that situation in Germany at the moment.
That Berlin, right? Brand new massive factory
close
in
to Berlin. And there's a big discussion about groundwater levels that are being affected because of some reason. The factory is supposed to use a lot of water. So there's a big discussion, how much do they take, what levels are managed, and so on. And in that case, trustworthy data from these sensors is even important to the public, because you can mitigate these discussions by saying, here's the log of the water levels around the factory, so you can see that everything is fine, or you can see that a claim has to be filed because something is not fine. But that's another nice example, of how this can be dealt with IoT, mobile uplinks, and so on, and also it's some kind of technology that proves that the data hasn't been, changed basically when it came out of the sensor.
Good stuff. So helping with the environment and indeed public trust in the fact that environmental standards are being met.
Absolutely. And by the way, that's maybe a third example is, think of these seals, for textile production, for example. Today we are still in the, mood of believing the seal that is printed in some clothes or so. And our prediction is that in the near future, consumers will want more. They maybe want to scan a QR code and get a full production log of that T-shirt that they just bought, and for that you need IoT sensors in the production, the water, whatever that comes out of the factory, to prove that everything was okay. Basically, that's another example that we are working on. By the way, it's not a theoretical thing; it's something out of the practice.
Practical one. So, final question: when you're talking to companies that are looking at deploying IoT, to what extent is environmental impact one of the big considerations compared to cost savings or more efficient operations or whatever? Is it a significant driver? Is it increasing in terms of the impact it has on making those decisions?
Well, I would say, to be honest, at the moment, it's usually not the top priority. If we take, a smart grid aside, because in that case, it is a top priority. But I think this is sharply on the rise, for a couple of reasons. Public interest, regulators are looking more closely into that, liability questions. So it's not just, acting as a good company, which is a nice, priority too. But there are a couple of reasons, why this is on the rise, I would say, and I appreciate it. So I would predict, that in the next 5 years, we will see more and more cases where this is indeed among the top priorities of IoT projects, especially in the public sector.
Great stuff. Well, that's all we have time for. Stephan Noller from UBIRCH, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.